One chance, one life, one take. Little room for mistake. Who do you
Welcome back to the Dead Funny, Dead Serious podcast. We are going to dive right in. Our guest today is Andrea Cox. And Andrea, who are you and what do you do?
Wow, such a good question. Hello, thank you for having me, Mitzi. My name is Andrea Cox. I'm from Canada, and I am a licensed funeral and memorial pre-planning consultant. So what I do is I actually work with various funeral homes in Alberta and BC currently. We'll be building on that and just setting up prepaid funeral packages. So what happens that when people do this in advance, it takes away that chaos, it takes away that confusion, possible family breakdowns, and it takes away the financial burden that are on family members at that time. So that's pretty much what I do. And then I try to educate people on the topic of death. So I do a Let's Talk show on Instagram, on Facebook, educating people. And then we also run monthly webinars on the exit plan and preparing for our final departure. So that's what I do.
Yes, and I highly recommend the Let's Talk episodes every week. One, I've been on there and it's so fun in general, but also just the range of people that you have on that show. Mm-hmm. I learn something every time I check in. I'm like, oh, that was cool. That's an interesting thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Excellent. So that is who you are and what you do. How the heck did you get into this?
Right?
Right?
Oh my goodness. So, my background is actually in HR. So I've done that for years. And I ended up working with a unionized company, and I was going to union members' homes and explaining to them their options for permanent benefits. So one of the questions we would ask the union members is, do you have a will? And in most cases, people would say no. And I was so used to that. And I went to this one young couple's home and they said yes. And I was just like, you do? It was just so weird. And what they explained to me is that the reason why they have a will is because they have a close family friend who unfortunately died from domestic violence. And when they went to that funeral, the children were there with social services. And that's when it dawned on them that they need to get a will in place. So that was the first like ding, ding, ding in my mind that, I go to all these homes and most people don't have a will. Do they understand the why, right? Mm-hmm. And then I went to this other gentleman's home and I asked him the question. I was telling him about the permanent benefits. And one of the benefits we were doing was a funeral coverage. So that when someone passes away in the family, you go to the funeral home with the certificate. Mm-hmm. And, he told me confidently that he's not going to die. So he did not need the policy.
Oh, and excellent.
Right?
So happy for him that he wasn't going to die.
And then that's when I'm like, there's a problem. There's actually a huge problem. Like, we're not accepting that this is a part of life. You know what I mean? And, it's just like birth. It's part of the life process, right? And, death is going to happen to one out of one of us. It's not an if, it's a when. And how prepared are we, right? So, yeah. And then that's how I'm pretty much where I am now on educating. And when I got into doing what I'm doing with the funeral packages, like I never thought I would be doing something like this. Like, it's just so out of character. I am the one that's scared of, dead people from when I was younger. Like, it's just crazy. So for me to be doing this, and even so, I'm licensed here in Alberta. I have 2 licenses in Alberta, 1 in BC, and 1 is with the Alberta Funeral Board. And I had to, like, for the theory part of it and the practical, like, I had to go through the whole understanding how good the cremation process is and see everything, and even with the embalming. And I thought to myself, oh my God, like at first I was like, do I really have to do this, you guys? And I saw the benefit of doing that because it's opened up my mind a lot, and it's really educated me on being able to educate other people, right? Doing that on that course. So short-term pain, long-term gain. I don't have to go through that again. So here I am.
Yeah. So interesting. I didn't realize that someone in your position would have that opportunity, even through licensure. And I love what you do. I think you and I have that in common. We're looking at what, if you don't deal with your will and your planning, who it gets left to. right? All that
right.
trauma that goes into the
Right.
family system when they don't want to be dealing with anything at that point, right? They want to be attending to their grief and their healing.
Yeah.
And instead they're dealing with papers and
With paper.
garbage. I mean, literally, they're just dealing with things that they wouldn't have to deal with normally.
If it was taken care of beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you come from HR. Now you're here.
I'm deep in.
you're in it to win it here. What are your challenges doing this work?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of the day, we don't think we're going to die. So, it's almost like how back in the days, we didn't talk about suicide. We didn't talk about depression, mental illness, right? So it's the challenges is breaking down these barriers, right? Because like, even if I go to a networking event and I say what I do the pre-planning side of it, but because people just automatically is like, well, I don't need her service because I'm not going to die, right? So it's almost like, well, I don't need you. And it's like, well, we all kind of need someone like me because it's about putting a plan in place today, not tomorrow. You know what I mean? So it's just talking about it. That's one of the challenges, and just people acknowledging that we're going to die, right? So, and we don't want to talk about it. And the challenge is that even like with adult children, that their parents don't want to talk about it. So how do we break down how do we start these conversations, right? So, with myself, I'll tell people like, just, even if you have parents that do not want to talk about it, let them know what you've put in place. So you need to be the example, and then they'll sometimes jump on. Or even watching a movie that has like a death scene in it, or like a funeral, like a funeral scene. And, there are some movies that are hilarious, and you could break down those walls, right? By doing it. And the thing about it is that we need to choose our difficult. We're either going to do it now while our family members are here and can talk about it, or our next option is when something happens and we can't talk to them. Do you know what I mean? So we just need to choose where do we rather to be, and then just have those conversations. As uncomfortable as it is, it's those conversations that need to be had. You know what, Mom, if I pass away, you go into my room, underneath my bed, in the suitcase, you're going to find my insurance policy, you're going to find my will. Because at that time, we're not thinking, right? And we need someone to hold our hand during that difficult time. So the more that we could put in place beforehand, it will just bring so much peace for our loved ones during that difficult time. And it also adds to our legacy, right? So on that, we've done that for our loved ones. You know what I mean? And in the book that I'm writing, even to the extent that I'm putting in, what do you want in your obituary? Because when someone passes away, our family is the one to do that. And, how often are members upset because they weren't in the obituary, or their name was spelled wrong, or there's wrong information, because you're getting information from who knows where, and it's not sometimes accurate, right? So if we could do those, and they're little things, well, it can be difficult thinking about it, but I think it's just the peace of mind of doing it beforehand. So yeah.
I love that. Planting seeds.
Planting them, right.
When you're ready, let's talk about this. I mean, I'll be honest, it took me years to do my will. From the person that inspired me was my financial advisor. And, every time we would have our yearly meeting, he would be like, you should have this will. And it took me a while. And this is years ago, but I was like, I don't have much. Why do I need that? And he's like, you're at the time I was a single parent. And I was like, I don't have much. And he's like, you do, you have a kid.
Exactly.
And it took him some years to get me. And I finally did it. And I was like, duh, why didn't I do this earlier?
And that's the thing that's the thing that everyone seems to say is, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this from before? Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's interesting when I think back to when I used to go to the union members' homes. I remember meeting with this couple, and their cousin had a young one, and the cousin lived with her father. And unfortunately, she passed away, and the child went to the father. Wow. So because of that, the mother's side of the family has not seen this child. And, and this is another thing, is that we need to put in writing, you know what I mean? Who do we want? And even if it ends up being the father, you want them to see their other side of the family. But at the same time, that's now gone, right? So it's these things that we just don't even think about, right? So why it's so important, so important.
Wow, if that isn't a wake-up call for anybody listening to get their paperwork in order, especially if you have young children, I don't know what is.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, we can go on forever with the different ones, right? And I know we don't have the time, but this is why we just need to start to have these conversations and just normalize it. And I think the more that we talk about it, the more we'll realize, whoa, there's a lot for us to do, right? Because if we think about what we do on a daily basis, right, with our loved ones, with our family, and then all of a sudden we're gone, oh my gosh, what are they going to do, right? So it's almost like when you think about this, like, oh my goodness, I need to start writing stuff down. And you'll notice that you'll write pages and pages and pages and pages, right? So, and I think it's a whole lot easier to have these conversations before something happens, just because depending on who the person is, and I've seen it in different ways, that if someone is at the point of death, they're either going to rush to do something, or they're going to completely shut down.
Yep.
Because if they knew that they had to get it done, they're going to push to get it done. But for those who've never thought about it, they're now dealing with, I'm going to die. This is now my problem. The rest is yours. And they don't want to have the conversation. I actually had a conversation with a pastor the other day, and they were telling me how there's this gentleman who, he was dying. His family's in Europe, and he didn't want to tell them. Wow. But his ex-girlfriend knows the family, and he doesn't want her to tell them either. And I thought to myself, that's not fair to her, because now the family is going to be upset with her. And I said, you know what, get him to write down something, or speak with him and you guys write it, or give him the phone to record something. Because at that time, our family's now grabbing for everything, right? And now they feel robbed, they feel upset, because they didn't get that chance to say bye, or they didn't get that chance to do, you know what I mean? Just, even the chance to come see you. Do you know what I mean? That was all robbed, and it adds to, as you know, part of the grieving process, doesn't it? So it's things like this that so much easier to have the conversations before, everybody.
Definitely. And adding what you're saying, and just adding in for any of my psychology people that are listening and thinking about death psychology, grief psychology, we're talking about unfinished business. And that travels through whole family systems. We're talking about family secrets. If somebody knows and other people don't.
Mercy.
Whoa. And some denial. We're talking about a lot of things in there, aren't we?
Yeah. And it's even these little things on our cell phones or our laptops or our iPads, you know what I mean? Has so much information in it. And it's almost like our families have to be professional hackers to get into them, right? Yeah. And like, even with our cell phones, our family can't go to the cell phone company and they will not get into the phone. So it's things like this that we need to write down and put aside our passwords for these things that will help them.
Yes.
Put this piece together that is now literally a hot mess. These little things that we don't even think about.
And working on, the Facebook memorialization piece, it's just a button to push, but a lot of people haven't pushed that button, and it causes a lot of turmoil, a lot of pieces and hoops to jump through that aren't really anyone's favorite thing to do, right? Is to jump through Facebook hoops or password barriers. So, and that is called thanosensitivity. Any kind of digital footprint that we're kind of leaving behind.
Yes.
And, kind of also for all of us, it's like, what do we want to leave behind? Curating that a little bit too, if we're thinking about it ahead of time, that you're helping us with. So thank you.
Thank you. No, you're welcome. You're welcome. And it's interesting because we just had that conversation last night. So every Thursday on, sometimes I wonder, where do I say ClubHouse, right? It's like, where are we? And we were just talking
Of course.
about that in regards to the whole Facebook, but you mentioned something different, and I'm going to ask you just to expand on that. So there is a button that we need to press on Facebook. Is that accurate?
Yes. I'm going to do a little, some bits on that probably over on TikTok. So find me over there.
Okay.
Because there's a button in your settings and it's called Facebook Memorialization. And it says it's going to give somebody else access to your account to memorialize you. So it will allow everyone to know that you have passed away.
Right.
And, if someone doesn't do that, I will say it can be highly traumatic to other people. So I just want to encourage anyone that's listening, go over there, find it, click that button. I have a friend that passed away from coronavirus a year and a half ago, and his birthday came around and he had a ton of friends on Facebook. A lot of us knew that he had passed away, but when you have so many friends, you don't see every post.
Right.
His birthday comes around and hundreds of people are saying happy birthday. And for me, that was just this moment of, I didn't know how to deal with it. It was ambiguous, like re-traumatization of that loss.
Right.
And I'm sure to every other person that knew and was seeing that as well. And so I was like, oh, it was just one button would have helped hundreds of people process that. And so, press that button, everyone.
Right.
So,
wow. Thank you for that information.
Yeah.
This is why it's good to have these conversations, because there's always something to learn and to be able to not keep it to ourselves, but to share it. Right. So, wow.
That is what death education is. It's why I went into it. Right. Is that there was things I found out after I had some major death experiences. And I was like, if I had known that.
Yes.
And I started having these after regrets. And I was like, oh my gosh, everyone needs to know these things so they don't feel that. And
right.
I know we can't fix every single thing and not everyone's going to know everything. You're going to have some regrets because death is hard. And if we can make it just a touch less traumatizing, let's fucking do that.
Yes, for
swearing.
sure.
This is my swearing podcast. So.
Well, you know what? There's times that you just have to. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Here we are. So we did the difficult pieces on our last couple of minutes here. I also want to talk about the hope. What hope do you have for your field and your business in general? I heard you're writing a book, so spill it.
Yeah. So the hope is that more families will not have to go through that devastation. So you have situations where, people have their will in place. The family knows what that person wants. You know what I mean? All that stuff is done in advance. And then you have those that nothing is done. And it's traumatizing, right? And we don't know what we don't know. Mm-hmm. And I think that's another thing that's difficult with what I do, because it's not until you go through it do you see the value of what we do as death workers, right? So, and we're actually doing an event, as I mentioned earlier, on October the 24th. It's Sunday, October the 24th, and it's an online event, and it's called the Exit Plan Forum, where we're going to have lawyers, funeral home workers, cemetery workers, insurance agents, and some impact stories so people can hear the difference of when there's a plan in place as opposed to when there is not. So the goal is that we'll have more families when that time happens be in a better situation so that they could more grieve as opposed to running up and down during that devastating time and making these long-term decisions that's going to be permanent during a short time when you're not even thinking straight, right? So it's just to have more families be able to grieve and their death experience is a positive one as opposed to a negative one.
Absolutely. Dropping all that information so they can have it when they need it.
Yes.
Amazing. And they can find you, everyone can find you where?
Yeah. So I'm on Facebook, Andrea Cox. I'm on Instagram, Andrea_9474. I need to change that. I don't know where 9474 came from. Oh my goodness. So yeah, Instagram and on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, jump on, watch the reruns of the podcast. I had an amazing one with Mitzi. We talked about death doulas and death cafes, everyone. So definitely check those out. And yeah, the more you can learn, the more you can help not just yourself, not just your family, but all those around you.
Definitely. And you're also on ClubHouse.
I'm on ClubHouse, yes. So I do ClubHouse right now. I just do a room the third Monday of every month. So that'll be coming up this Monday, and we're going to be more talking on what you need to know before you pass away. So that is our discussion on Monday. So that is 6:30 my time, Mountain Standard Time. I'm telling you, these time differences.
We're all discombobulated with time differences. But I highly recommend the ClubHouse. If you're on ClubHouse, check out Andrea's rooms, because then they have access to you, and then you can ask like a real question. So if you have anything that's coming up and you're just like, where to begin, or you have a specific problem, those are the rooms to be in.
Yes.
Yes. I think ClubHouse is underrated for that. You really can get great access to people with good information, quick.
Definitely. It's a place to go to learn.
Yeah. It sounds like you're head down though, finishing this book, and we're excited to read it and purchase it and give it to all our loved ones. Right.
I'm actually thinking about doing like Christmas packages and Christmas boxes, because what more of a gift is that? And that's the thing, is that getting our affairs in order is a gift of love, right? And it's the last thing that we could do to our loved ones, for our loved ones when we pass away. So
yeah. Does the book have a name yet?
Yeah, it's Preparing for Your Final Departure.
Okay. We're gonna no pressure, but we're waiting.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just gonna sit here and wait for you. So
it'll be around for the holidays for sure.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Andrea. Everyone check her out: Instagram, Facebook, ClubHouse, and pre-buy that book in November. Yay. Best to you.
Thank you so much, Missy. Same with you as well. Okay. Bye for now.